At many universities abroad, scientists are not allowed to openly express religious beliefs. They worry it may affect objectivity of scientific research. So does this mean that scientists don't need religious beliefs, or do they really need it?
It is important to note that these are actually two completely different questions. I think the first question you mentioned just now primarily applies to Western countries, because in the West, for example, during the Middle Ages, a historical period in Europe that lasted from the 5th to the late 15th century, the church often exerted a considerable amount of pressure on science. They were worried that science would challenge their religious beliefs, because their religious belief holds that their God is the creator and ruler of everything in the universe. Scientists don't believe in that kind of thing. So since the Middle Ages, scientists have faced suppression, especially physicists and astronomers. For example, figures such as Galileo and Bruno, as everyone knows, they were persecuted. Bruno was even burned to death. Later on, things gradually started to change. Actually, in the past 100 years or so, in the United States, much of the suppression of science has shifted from physics to now targeting biological sciences. For example, in some states in America, there are still laws that prohibit the teaching of evolutionary theory. That is a suppression of biological development. Because of the suppression of scientists by the church, it has also led to pushback and rebuttals from scientists. So now many scientists, in fact, criticize religion because they have been suppressed by religion. My view is this: starting from the first question, science without religion is blind. Religion without science is lame. In other words, the two cannot be separated. When scientists lack religious faith, they might develop a certain arrogance in their approach, believing science can solve all problems. When conducting research, they may not often consider the negative impacts brought by science. For example, I think about the development of certain weapons, scientific research into highly destructive weapons, or conducting scientific research that could greatly harm humanity. Those scientists may lack proper religious faith. The best kind of religious faith is that of a Buddhist. He is not only wise, but also compassionate. When one has compassion, one won't do scientific research that is destructive or lethal. So I personally believe scientists should have religious faith so that the research they conduct is guided by religious and moral standards.
Starting a research project, one must make the right judgment to determine whether this research is truly worth pursuing and whether it will harm humanity. All right, Khenpo Rinpoche.
This is how I see it. Do scientists really actually need religious faith? It depends on the field of research they are engaged in. Some areas may require faith, while others may not necessarily need it. I once read something published in a journal from the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, which said that among all Nobel Prize winners from around 1901 up to 1997, which is nearly a century, during this significant period, among roughly over 600 scientists, approximately 96% of them had religious faith. Only a small percentage of people in the survey did not have any religious belief. There are also other statistics from the United States that have been reported in recent years. In one survey, out of more than 60 people, only 21 individuals had no religious faith. There are such claims as well. So I think that, in fact, having religious faith in many ways truly and genuinely can be quite significant. Though when considering research methodologies, it might actually be better not to have any faith. I've been to some Western countries. Some are sensitive about which religion do you believe in? Do you have any faith? Once, when I was at a school, I inadvertently asked a professor about faith in a seminar. He was really unhappy, saying, "That's my private matter. Why would you ask such a question?" Nevertheless, I believe that for a scientist, having faith is beneficial because through religious or spiritual practice, we can resolve suffering from birth, aging, sickness, and death. Religion can help us deal with a lot of inner pain. I remember that Dr. Toynbee once said, the history of humanity is actually the history of religion. If you look at history, everything that has happened is actually related to religion. If someone has no faith at all and completely rejects all religions, then in their field of research, they are missing a part of the framework, because relying on scientific research is effective for material, but human challenges extend beyond. They encompass emotions and spiritual dimensions, as well as profound existential questions of the inner life. Inner problems are complicated. Therefore, if a scientist wants to study these, they really need religious faith or research into religion.
Whether someone has faith or not may not directly impact the technical quality of scientific research or greatly affect the outcomes. But regarding motivation and guidance and direction on a spiritual level, there may be some flaws.